where we're bringing more community colleges to the table. We're bringing more underrepresented and minority groups to the table because, as one of our speakers said during the plenary session, education is not a luxury, right? Education is a human right. And when you're linking education to global competencies and you're showing that workforce and industries are linking the most desirable trait for their employees to have is a global competency, then we have to have everyone gaining access to these. I think for myself, I am a product, right, of international education. Both of my parents migrated from the United States, from the island of Hispaniola, both for academic endeavors and scholarship. And so academic scholarship and education has always been honed in to my culture. I was, born in the United States, born in New York, raised in New York, but English was not my first language. And so it's always been something that's dear to us at home, of making sure that you're educated, you have access to education, but also looking outward to that whole international space because my parents were immigrants. So they always understood that value. Push back and push forward, to my own college dreams. I did my graduate work in France. So then I too now became an international student, going to a different country, living in a different country, being illiterate in a different country, and noting the importance of tapping into student services, of having resources. Fast forward now as a profession and being 6 months into my role as the President and Executive Director of CCID, Community Colleges for International Development, one of the changes or the importance that I see in it has to be around, number one, the lack of representation for community colleges, the lack of representation for underrepresented groups, whether those are minority groups or socioeconomic disadvantaged groups. And I think that it's very important, because when we talk about 21st century skills, when we talk about workforce readiness, when we talk about job placement, global competencies, that shouldn't be limited to just a segment of a population or limited to just a segment of types of institutions, right? Those are part of educational rights, which are part of human rights. And so how do we get everyone across the room, across the board, across institutions represented, but also having access to all of these great opportunities? IIE has so many amazing programs and does great work in the field when it comes to international higher ed. And even within my 172 network of community vocational and technical institutions across the United States, I don't have not one member institution here which is discussing the future of international higher ed. And to me, that's disheartening. It shows the gaps in the work. It shows the spaces that requires for the work to grow in. And so, I'm happy that I could be here, but we need people that are on the ground working directly with the students here. So it's important for me to see that change and that shift, where we're bringing more community colleges to the table. We're bringing more underrepresented and minority groups to the table because, as one of our speakers said during the plenary session, education is not a luxury, right? Education is a human right. And when you're linking education to global competencies and you're showing that workforce and industries are linking the most desirable trait for their employees to have is a global competency, then we have to have everyone gaining access to these. And how else are you doing it if you're not looking at international student support services, international student mobility, global exchange opportunities, faculty development around those opportunities? How else are you going to do that if these are not the areas that we're attracting and we're working on them on all prongs of institutional levels, not just four-year institutions, of all prongs of the spectrum?